I gotta say, and I'm friendly with the ladies on The View, but they didn't say anything about this week. Nothing. You know, because it's never been their thing to weigh in on the issues.
Did y'all really think we weren't going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel? I mean, have you watched the show over the last 29 seasons? So you know, no one silences.
Whoopi and The View seem to be in full-on panic mode, and it's honestly hilarious. Just last week, Bill Maher called them out for being too scared to even mention Jimmy Kimmel's controversy.
I gotta say, and I'm friendly with the ladies on The View, but they didn't say anything about this week. Nothing. You know, because it's never been their thing to weigh in on the issues. It's just, you know, it's just an upbeat party show. That's why they hired people named Joy and Sonny and Whoopi. But no, girls, let me go out strong, okay? It won't kill you. I promise. It's happened to me, and I may go out after this show. We don't know. We don't.
The View has never shied away from a headline, until now. Remember when I showed you that clip of a former panelist admitting they sometimes get just a few hours to prep before tackling major issues? Exactly. That's why it stunned everyone when, right after Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, The View went live pretending like they hadn't heard a word about ABC benching their own late-night host. No wonder Bill Maher torched them, saying they were too scared to jeopardize their cushy jobs by bringing him up. But here's the twist. They finally broke their silence, and what they said will leave you stunned.
Really think we weren't going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel? I mean, have you watched the show over the last 29 seasons? So you know, no one silences us. And to all my friends in Italy who reached out, you have to know it's okay. We're still here. We're still broadcasting. And when the news broke last week about Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, we took a breath to see if Jimmy was going to say anything about it first. We did the same thing with Stephen Colbert.
Now, that's just not true, and I'll explain why they finally spoke up about Jimmy Kimmel in a moment. The claim that they paused out of respect to hear Kimmel's side, just like they supposedly did with Colbert's scandal, is pure fiction. Let's rewind. Right after Colbert was fired, The View wasted no time jumping in with their hot takes. They didn't wait for his official statement, not for a second. And honestly, since when have Whoopi and her crew ever held back their opinions for anyone? Exactly, never. Which makes Whoopi's claim completely false. But let's not drag this out. Roll the clip and see what really happened.
The show was on tape on Friday, but we are live here today, and we're getting into it now. Okay? Because to be clear, you cannot like a show. Now, I want to make sure I got this right. To be clear, you cannot like a show and it can go off the air. Mm-hmm. Someone can say something they shouldn't and get taken off the air, but the government cannot apply pressure to force someone to be.
Did you notice how unusually careful Whoopi was when reading that statement? It was almost comical. She looked terrified that one wrong word could land her in trouble or even cost her the job. Since when has Whoopi Goldberg ever been that meticulous with a teleprompter? Exactly, never. So, forget the fake bravado. Her cautious delivery gave everything away. And here's the kicker. Jimmy Kimmel is already back on ABC after what now looks like just a temporary suspension. The View knew all along he was returning, which is exactly why they finally spoke up. Suddenly they're brave, but only because the coast was clear. Still, Bill Maher didn't hold back. He roasted The View anyway.
The FCC says they're going to go after maybe next The View. They got a new show lined up. It's going to be great. It's called Morning Wood with James Wood.
Ma didn't hold back. He flat out teased The View, suggesting they could be next on the chopping block after Jimmy's suspension, maybe even swapped out for fresh programming. And honestly, I had the same thought. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not calling for The View to be canceled. Love them or hate them, they've secured their spot in daytime TV. But here's the real issue. They constantly shoot from the hip without fact-checking. They'll twist a headline, exaggerate a scandal, and present it as gospel before the dust even settles. That's not bold, that's reckless. If anything, this whole situation should serve as a wake-up call. No one's saying they need to vanish forever, but maybe it's time they realize credibility actually matters. Because if they keep playing fast and loose with the truth, Maher's joke might end up sounding more like a warning. Oh, and he didn't spare Jimmy Kimmel either.
Jimmy, look, I don't think what he said was exactly right. I don't. We don't agree on that. He didn't lose his job for it. He said the MAGA crowd was trying to characterize the assassin as anything but one of them because the 22-year-old kid, his family was MAGA. As if a 22-year-old with a trans girlfriend never rebelled against their family. I mean, but was he on the left? I don't know that either. And I hate to do this. I'm tipping the end of the show, which I work so hard on to keep a secret from the rest of the show. But it's too relevant. What I'm talking about at the end, I'm going to have to say now, which is that it is a fool's errand to try to say that these nuts who do these things are any team.
Credit where it's due. Maher is one of the only voices on the left willing to state the obvious. Jimmy was wrong. While most comedians bent over backward to excuse Kimmel's comments, insisting there was nothing offensive, Maher cut through the noise. He said flat out that Jimmy crossed the line, but also that he didn't deserve to lose his job over it. And he's right on both counts. Kimmel shouldn't have been fired, and technically, he wasn't. What he got was more like a slap on the wrist, a temporary suspension disguised as punishment. But let's be clear, that suspension wasn't about discipline. It was ABC's way of saving face, pretending to hold him accountable while fully planning his return. Maher called it exactly as it was. And that kind of honesty, rare as it is, sets him apart from the rest.
Every right to be wrong, but look at this guy. He was doing video games with furries. He was on a game called Furry Shades of Gay 3. This kid is in his basement with VR goggles on, getting virtually ass-fucked by a cartoon wombat? And you're gonna put politics into this?
Bill kept the pressure on with sharp, subtle jabs at Jimmy Kimmel for rushing to pin the attack on MAGA. The message behind Maher's sarcasm was crystal clear. Jimmy should have done his homework instead of politicizing a tragedy to score cheap points. A quick fact-check would have spared him the embarrassment of getting it wrong on national television. Had he paused, he would have realized the incident didn't fit neatly into any political box. No MAGA ties, no clear ideology, just a disturbed individual. But instead, Jimmy jumped headfirst into the anti-MAGA narrative without evidence. That's why Maher's mockery hit so hard, because it was true. Kimmel's knee-jerk reaction wasn't just sloppy, it exposed him as reckless and partisan. In the end, Maher's jabs weren't just about Jimmy. They were a reminder that facts matter more than spin.
He doesn't belong in either party. He belongs in a straitjacket. He's an outpatient who should not be out. But you have the right to be wrong, or to have any opinion you want. That's what the First Amendment is all about. I was defending it last week on this show against what they're doing in England against the left. Come on, guys.
Let's pause and break this down. Jimmy Kimmel's removal from late-night TV wasn't really about what he said. It was about the money. The moment he launched into those anti-MAGA remarks, Disney, ABC's parent company, saw its stock take a hit. And not a small one. Reports say it dropped about 2%, wiping roughly $4 billion off the company's market value in just hours. Losses like that send shockwaves through investors and executives. So ABC didn't suspend Kimmel out of principle or morality. They did it to stop the bleeding. It was pure damage control. When billions are at stake, loyalty to a late-night host doesn't matter.
Organization, Antifa is a broad designation with no identifiable leader and no observable plan, like the Democrats. So Jimmy, let me just say, Pal, you did a great, funny show for 2 decades. You should be proud of that. If this firing goes for you the way it did for me, you'll get 23 years.
Maher couldn't end his monologue without taking aim at the Democratic Party. And honestly, who could blame him? The DNC has been a shell of its former self ever since last year's crushing election defeat. What was once a well-oiled political machine now looks like a circus desperate to stay relevant. The cracks are obvious. No clear leader, no consistent strategy, no coherent message, just noise. Instead of shaping the national conversation, the party is clinging to theatrics, cheap stunts, and empty shenanigans to keep its base entertained. Maher's critique landed because it rang true. The Democratic Party isn't steering the discourse anymore. It's chasing headlines, fumbling its identity, and waiting for someone, anyone,